Hey guys, welcome back to the channel here. This video is going to be a little bit different than my normal videos. This one's going to be a do-it-yourself step-by-step on how to build a herringbone accent wall on the wall behind me here. I did a video last year about doing a herringbone wall, and that was a really popular video. Had a lot of views on that, a lot of great comments, and some of you guys wanted to see a little bit more detail, some of the tools I'm using, and a couple little tips and tricks that I was doing. So that's going to be what this video is going to be about. This is going to be version 2 of how to build a herringbone accent wall. I'm going to add some great tips in there, some more little tricks, kind of go over more of my process in a little more detail, and some of the tools I've been using, and just make it easier for if you're at home and you want to build a wall like this. Just make it real simple to go from plain wall to a one-of-a-kind herringbone accent wall. And it's actually a pretty simple project to do, and almost anyone can do it with some simple tools. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and I'll show you this process to get this wall from boring to a great wall. So enough talking, let's just jump right in and get to work. Alright, well, first step to building your accent wall is figuring out how much material you actually need. So you just take the width of your room there and multiply that by the height. And you get that number and divide that by 32, because it's 32 square feet in a 4x8 sheet of wood. And the wood that I'm using for this one is 1/2 inch MDF in 4x8 sheets. And you can get that at Lowe's or Home Depot. They always have that in stock there. I did my measurements, and it's 7 feet there and 12 feet to the top, and divided that by 32, and it shows I need 2.5 sheets. So I'm gonna go ahead and get 3 sheets of MDF. And when doing these measurements, you always want to add on about 10 to 20% extra. And next step to accent wall is determining the size of board you need to make your herringbone pattern. And I found that anything wider than 9 feet, you can use a 5.5 by 48 inch board. And anything like in a hallway, when it's 4 feet or less, a nice 4 by 16 inch board will work. But mostly if it's in here, like me, if I try to use a 5.5 inch by 48 board, then I'm gonna have just a giant A, and I don't want that. So I've determined that if it's a 5.5 inch by 24 inch board, it'll be a nice W pattern. And that's kind of what you're looking for. If your wall is a little bit bigger, like if I was doing the whole wall, the 5.5 inch by 48 would be nice, because my boards will go up, down, down, and up, and give you that nice W pattern for the herringbone. And like I said, if it's the hallway, then it'd just be little tiny boards. But for this one, since it's only 7 feet wide, I have to use a 24 inch long board, and that'll give me the perfect pattern in between there to give me a nice little W to start my herringbone accent wall. So this next step here is definitely a very important one, and that's going to be putting the mark on the center of your wall. So you're gonna, measure from edge all the way to the edge. We'll just imagine that I have a wall here, but edge to edge, and you want to find your center and mark that exactly in the center. But for me, since I'm just doing on top of this fireplace here, I'm just measuring edge to edge there and getting my exact center there. And it's very, very important that you get your center marked exactly and perfectly as you can get. I go from one side and measure to the middle, go from the other side, measure to the middle, and make sure those measurements are the same. And then when you have your center line marked, you can go back with your 4-foot level. And I like to make the mark from the center there all the way to the top to give me a nice guide for putting my wall up. All right, so I got my center line all set up there. And if you're doing this in like an office or bedroom, good thing to do also is measure from the edge of your wall to the center, and then go to the top corner and measure to the center also, because houses aren't always perfectly level or straight or square or anything like that. So if you're at the top there and you get to the middle and it's off by a little bit, you can always adjust your line just a little bit to make sure that it's even on both sides of the wall. Well, I have my 4 sheets here of MDF that I picked up from the store, and there's so many different ways you can get these cut out. Easy way to do it is if you have a track saw, you can measure out your pieces here and cut them on the track saw, and you can cut all 3 or 4 of these pieces at once, which is really easy. Or if you don't have that, you can get it's kind of like a big bar clamp that uses a guide to run your circular saw next to, and that'll cut those out. Or like me, I like to use the table saw, but these sheets are too big to put on the table saw by myself. So I kind of just measured out 5.5 until I get down to 46 inches. And at 46, I'll cut them down, cut the line down there, and these will be in 2 smaller pieces that'll be a lot easier for me to move around. And I can get these on the table saw a lot easier. And it's a little bit slower with the table saw because you just cut 1 piece at a time. But for me, they come out pretty straight and accurate that way. So let's go ahead and get these cut out. All right, so table saw made pretty quick work of cutting these 48-inch pieces out. And next I'll just come over here and cut them out at 24 inches. And so I don't have to measure each one. I just set my saw here just to stop here. So it's gonna be at 24 inches. And I'll stack up like 3 or 4 at a time so I don't have to cut just one single piece. So here's a big stack of 5.5-inch pieces that I cut down to 24 inches long. I use 5.5 inches as a width because that way there's really no waste when I cut them out on a 4x8 sheet of MDF. But anyways, next is to round over the edges, and I have just my small Makita handheld router here with a Diablo round over bit. And I just set this so the top of that round over blade is just flush with the router plate there. So that way it's gonna give it a nice round over, a full round over, and it's not gonna cut any deeper than it should. But when you're setting it, just go ahead and just try to cut a couple pieces, test pieces, and it's better to set it shallower and then set it deeper as you go. So go outside, it's really windy today, so I'm gonna go out there and get set up and start getting these things rounded over. I cut a little test piece here, and you can see that line on top. That means I have this bit set just a little too deep. So I did a couple more little test cuts here. So on the right side, that is just a little too shallow, and then on the left side here, that is about perfect for the round over that we're going for. So while I'm doing these little boards here, doing the round over, I was gonna set up my little table here, and I found it's easy to just put little screws in the back there, so that way when you're having the router, you can push that forward, you can push against the end there, and then flip it around to the other side, and the screws just kind of hold it down and hold it in place. And I'll leave a little overhang there so the router bit doesn't get caught on the edge there. But yeah, so this is my little workstation here, so I'm gonna get started. Well, a couple hours later, my wrist feels like it's gonna fall off, but finally got all these boards routed over and done with that. If you have a router table, I would definitely recommend using that instead of the hand router. But hand router, that's just what I have, so that's what I use. But anyways, this is done here, and now it is time to go over and finally start putting these up on the wall. So we're just about ready to start putting these boards up, but this is the next tool that you're gonna need is a 18 gauge brad nailer. This one's a air powered one. You can go with the ones that are battery powered. I have one of those also, but I just kind of like this air powered one a little bit more. The nails I'm using, these 18 gauge brad nails, and these are 1 3/4 inches. Just ½ inch through the drywall, ½ inch through the MDF, and 3/4 into the wood studs in the wall. And that's plenty to hold these boards on the wall, and make sure your accent wall isn't going to be an accent floor. So let's get onto this wall. Oh, now that we're ready to start putting these boards up here, this first piece and the second piece are the most critical pieces to get these perfect, because it's going to make putting this wall up just that much easier. Because if you mess up on this part just by a 1/16 of an inch on this first one, by the time you get to the top of your accent wall, you're gonna might be off by maybe even a couple of inches, and your wall is gonna start going crooked. So what I mean by that, to get this perfect, I have my 5½ inch piece here. So I just make a mark in the center, which is 2 3/4, and then from that corner down here, another mark at 2 3/4. And I'll show you why that part is important. Put that away. So I put my first piece up here, and this is my center line, of course, down there that we drew before. And I get the center of my board line lined up with that one. And then down here, I have my other one mark on it also. And that gives me a 45-degree angle. I come down here, and I made another mark, a level mark at 90 degrees. And I have the bottom of my corner touching that one, just to make sure that this thing is pretty close to a 45-degree angle. But I want to take another step and make sure that this is as close to 45 degrees as I can get. So the steps I take to make sure that this is at nice, just perfect 45-degree angle, I put my square up there on the side of that one, the 45, and I have this level here. This is just for my accent walls here. And pull up there, and I just make sure that my line there is level. So I'll even just adjust this a little bit. You might need to go over this way or over this way, up or down a little bit. But make sure that this is perfectly level. So you got the 45-degree angle, and then that line will be lined up with the center. That one will be lined up with the center, and the one on the corner here will be lined up with the bottom there. And then I'll even put just a couple nails in, so I can still adjust it up and down a little bit to make those final little adjustments for when I put my second piece on. So on this top board here, see my level is perfectly level here at the 45, and that's level. And this top mark lines up with my center line. And down here, my bottom mark, if you can see it, lines up with the mark there, my center line. And down here on the corner, my corner piece just touches the top of the line. So this piece, I would say, is pretty perfect right now. And we're ready for the second piece. All right, so on the second piece here, I just get it lined up there, just on the top there. It doesn't have to be perfectly square yet. But I'm sure that my top line is nice and even there. Go ahead and just put one little nail in the corner there, and mix it that way. Tell yourself pivot this up and down a little bit to make those last little adjustments. Put the square back on there again, and do the same thing with my level. Now I'll just adjust it just a little bit, whichever way it needs to go. get that nice 45. I see here that my center line is lined up also. My level here is level. I'll move a little bit when I moved. So center line of the board is with the center of the wall. Level here, that's level on a 45. Then just put a couple nails at the end to hold it on. And once these first two pieces are done, and just take some extra time to make sure that these are at a perfect 45. Your center lines are lining up, center wall with your boards. And these first two pieces, if you get these perfect, then the rest of your wall is going to be going up so much quicker. And by the time you get to the top of your wall, you're not going to have leaning either way, and your sideboards are going to be all the same cuts and same sizes. That's why these first two are definitely the most important to get just perfect from the first try. So real quick here before I get started, I just want to answer a question that I had from someone before. They asked, why do I put the mark in the center of the board there and put it on the center of the wall? Wouldn't it be easier just to have the top corner centered? I mean, that's a pretty easy line to follow. Or even want to have this bottom corner on your center line. And that's pretty easy, because if I had it line up the top corner to the center line, by the time I'm putting my outside pieces on, my right boards are going to be 2 inches longer than the boards on my left wall. And when the wall goes up, then it's going to look like it's a little crooked and kind of off center. So if you put the center of the board on the center of your wall, then when you're cutting the pieces for the left and right sides, then they're both going to be exactly the same size, and your wall is going to be nice and centered. Well, I started doing the stacking here, as you just saw, getting these put up here. And what I like to do is about every 3-4 boards, I'll make a mark on my center board and just line them all up, put them up here, and make sure that the center of my board is still with the center line here, because these boards, when you cut them out, they're not always perfect. And this one wasn't perfect. I put the level on it to make sure it's level, and just down here it's just a small like 1/32 of a gap I put in there, just to bring it back to a 45-degree angle. Because if it starts getting off just a little bit at the bottom, then the top's going to be off by a lot. And if there's just a small little gap in there, that's going to be okay. And the nails I'm putting in here, I just kind of just putting 2 in on my stud there, and then 2 in at top and bottom, and then down here 2 for the bottom also. And since there's no studs behind these ones, for these ones were in the drywall, I put a nail at an angle here and at an angle there, pointing towards each other. So then these ends here, they're not going to pull off. And we put these nails in. You don't have to go full auto with your nail gun, because you're going to have to come back and fill in all these little nail holes. So just enough nails to hang it on the wall, and not too many to make it harder for yourself in the end. So if you're doing this accent wall, you're probably going to have to cut the hole out for the outlet. And I'll show you the way that I'm doing that makes it easy. You just grab one of these X pieces of wood there and line it up with the edge there, make my marks all the way across. So that way when I put my next piece up there, all I have to do is just come up with my square, line with the marks, make my mark, and do the same for top and bottom. And then this makes it real easy to cut those out. Well, time to get that hole cut out for the outlet. And yes, you're gonna need another tool. that's going to be a jigsaw. That's one I use. And yeah, just simple. I already drilled the 4 holes in the corners. You don't have to do that, but I did this for fun. And just get them cut out. Yeah, there you go. Doesn't even have to be very perfect. Well, on my wall here, I don't have any outlets yet because this is a new build. They haven't been put in yet, but your wall probably will have outlets like this here. And you're gonna have to take these outlets off anyways because they're gonna go on top of your wood piece there once you get your hole cut. So you just take these top and bottom screws out. And what I like to do is just take them out, bend them, and just slide them back into the outlet there. So then you can have put your piece of wood on top of the box and get your measurements here. But if you're gonna do it this way, I probably recommend turning your power off because if you get your fingers in there and you touch these screws on the right side, then you're gonna have a bad day. So turn the power off, then you'll be nice and safe. You can put your outlet in there, put your board on, get that measured, cut it, then you can go ahead and turn your power back on as long as that one is still inside the box there. So we got the hole cut out there, and it doesn't matter if it's not straight or everything lines up. Mostly what you're looking for is not have too big of a gap on top and bottom, just enough so those screw holes are exposed, so when you put your outlet back on, it can screw into those holes and you have that little overlap on top and bottom. So when you plug things in, it doesn't get pushed into the wall or anything like that. So just leave enough room on top and bottom for those little ears to hang over. So now that most of the middle part is done, I have these edge pieces to do, and we'll just pretend that this line here on the side is just, we'll pretend that's the edge of the wall. So to get this measurement of how big this piece is going to be, I like to just get the square, go up there and make my mark underneath. Then go with my tape measure and measure down to this corner here and get those pieces measured and cut out. And if you did your center line perfectly straight, then all these little end pieces will be all exactly the same size. Cut the piece out, put it up there, and then just start nailing it in all the way to the top. Okay, so you saw the last piece went in and this wall is finally put up there, but it's not done yet. We have to do the finishing things for it. So there's about 600 nail holes in this thing from the brad nails. But what we have here is just the mid-wax wood filler. Really any kind of wood filler will work. And then for my seams here, they're not all perfect. So what I like to do is get my big stretch caulking here and just do a little tiny bit of caulking inside those gaps there, just so everything is nice and even. If you're using a black paint on this wall, you don't have to do that, doesn't matter. But if you're using any kind of white paint or anything lighter colored, then these gaps that aren't all the same size are going to really stick out. So up here on the ceiling, it's kind of hard to see here, but on the ceiling and on the edge of the walls, if over here was a corner, what I like to do is leave about an 1/8 inch gap between the boards and the ceiling and edge of the walls, so you can get the caulk in there, and there'll be a little bit of room for expansion in there. All right, so I just want to show a little detail on the corner here. So we'll just imagine that this is the edge of the wall. If you have your accent wall going wall to wall, so some things you can do to get this finished up is you can either put a little bead of caulk in there and smooth that down, or sometimes what I'll do is I'll get some nice cord around and just put that on the edge there, just to cover up that gap there and to make everything look nice and smooth and clean on the edge there. But yeah, there are a couple different options that you can do to get the edge of your wall finished up. So a little detailing here on the caulking. See there, I just put just a tiny bit of caulking just to fill these seams in, just so I can just barely get my finger in the tip of that. And don't do too much that it runs out, just enough to barely fill in that little crack there. And then of course I went ahead and filled all the nail holes, and it dried overnight and got that sanded down. Now just get the air compressor and blow the dust off, and then it'll be ready to start painting. On my wall here, since it doesn't go wall to wall, it just comes to the edge here and ends. I don't really like the look of this rough edge there, so I have some 1/2 inch cord around. I'll just put a little strip of that top to bottom and seal that little edge in with caulking. That's going to give it a nice clean look to transition from the accent wall down to my drywall. All right, next day here, came back and overnight the primer dried. I came with a 120 grit paper, gave the wall a quick sanding, just a light sanding to sand down the high parts, and getting ready to paint here. What I have to put in is this flood, 8 ounces per gallon. You see me using the paint sprayer, but if you don't have one, that's fine. You can use a paint roller, and you can just put in some of that product too, and that'll take out any of like the roller marks or brush marks, and it's gonna make it a nice smooth finish. So I'm gonna get painting, and let's see if we can see white paint going over white paint. And next day here, the wall is complete, everything is dry. Yesterday I put on 2 coats of the final paint on this, and I really like the way it came out. And if you're painting your wall, and sometimes you get some drips on these walls, where I'll get them sometimes is it'll come down the crack there, and kind of drip down there. But if you get that, it's not a big deal. You can go ahead and wait for it to dry and just sand that little bit down. And then you only have to paint your one piece there, and everything will kind of blend in because you have these cracks here. That's going to help blend the paint in. So if you get some little drips or runs, it's not a big deal. Just do a light sanding on them, and then with a real fine paper, and you can go over them again, and just with a light brushing, and just paint over that, and no one's going to even notice. But yeah, so here's the finished wall. Definitely happy with this product. I'll come back in a couple days and get the edges painted there. So then this wall here is going to really stand out. All right, guys. Well, this wall behind me, it's finally done. And in just a couple days, I took a boring wall and turned it into this nice piece of artwork behind me. And if you're watching this video to try to build your own accent wall, I hope that the steps I have are clear, and I hope everything in the video is nice and clear and easy to follow. Because this wall, it's really easy to make. It shouldn't be anything that's intimidating. It's a nice kind of starter project to do. And if you're wondering about the tools I use, I'll put that below in the description. And if you had any questions, you can always put those in the comments, and I'll come back and answer those. And anyone that had any questions or comments from my last video, I hope that this video answered those questions. And I'll leave a link also for my first video down below, and I'll probably put the card up above somewhere so you can click on that too and go to the video. But that's going to be it for this wall. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the build process, and if you're building your own wall, then good luck. It's going to turn out great, and don't be afraid of doing the work. So thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you for the next one.